Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Seeger, and I am the host of the Pieces of Impact podcast. Very excited for my guest today that's joining me, Mr. Tom Rowland. Thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so on this show, just to anyone that's new here, I document conversations with impactful people, and I believe Tom is one of those people. I'm going to go quickly over his bio just to give you a little bit of a background of who we're talking to today. And Tom, I mean, I'm a big fan of your podcast, so this one's going to be a lot of fun. Tom's one of those people that it feels like he's lived multiple lifetimes in one. So I think that his story, when we dig into it, it's going to be a lot of fun. From being a fishing guide to a successful entrepreneur to now being a podcaster, being very interested in fitness. A lot of our interests overlap, and it's going to be fun to unpack those. As I said, today you run the Tom Rowland podcast, where you sit down with legends across fishing, fitness, entrepreneurship, unpacking what makes them tick. And I really enjoy it too. And Tom, I think that one of the themes of your entire business and show is just really proof that passion and consistency put together over a long period of time can create some pretty special stuff. So did I cover enough here before we jump
Yeah.
on?
No, I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Well, I think to kick things off, I want to have you unpack your background a little bit, which I think will be nice because I'm sure I'll have plenty of follow-up questions as we get our way into the meat of the discussion. And I think it's going to give the viewer here an opportunity to get to know you too.
Okay. Um, well, you want me to, I'll start at the very beginning. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and that is a long way from saltwater, but that is where I was born and raised. And I went to a fantastic high school there called McCallie School, where I was a wrestler there. And that's where I kind of got a lot of my competitive drive, I think, was from wrestling and from that school. I went to Alabama for my college years. And on the first year there, I decided that I wanted to do something a little bit different than everybody else was doing around me. And I found an opportunity to go to Yellowstone National Park and work in Yellowstone National Park as a maid. And I actually took 3 of my friends with me out there, and we all got set up at Lake Hotel and were maids. And the best part about being a maid in Yellowstone was that you would work 4 days and then you would have 3 days off, which was pretty awesome. On top of that, they gave you about 17 rooms to clean. And when you were done with those and they were inspected, you could leave if you wanted to, or you could stick around and milk the clock and try to make some money. But we're only making a very small amount of money. So I was more interested in backpacking and hiking and fishing. And that type of fishing that I saw out there was unlike any fishing that I'd ever seen in Tennessee. I mean, the rivers were clear, you could see the fish, and it was more like hunting. And I grew up hunting and fishing with my dad, but I never fished like this. I never saw the fish before I cast to it, and you could spook it. You had to sneak up to it, and the first time I did that, I was like, I don't know what that was, but I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. That was amazing. And that's pretty much what happened from that moment. It was like a lightning strike right there. I was like, I'm going to do that. And what I thought that was trout fishing forever. But being from Tennessee, I didn't know what the winters were like in Wyoming. I eventually did, and that's how I ended up in Key West. But I did the next year. I went to a guide school in Jackson, Wyoming. Got hired out of that school by this man named Joe Bressler, and he became my mentor. Him and his dad. His dad was Vern Bressler, and Vern was a tough old cowboy and had very high standards. And so I learned how to guide from those 2 guys and the other guides that were around me. And they had incredibly high standards. Like, you had to show up looking right. You had to greet your customers a certain way. It was a really good opportunity to learn from some really great people. I did that for about 7 years, and somewhere along the line, and that was just summer work because I'd go back to school and then I'd come back out there. And somewhere along the line, I was like, I want to do this more. So I started asking all the other guides that were out there what they did in the wintertime. And, they were a mishmash of carpenters and snowmobile guides and um, builders of some sort. Some people were hunting guides, but it just sounded like tough way to make a living. But I tried it one winter. Um, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was out there with me, and we tried it. We tried to stay after we graduated college. We tried to stay out there all winter, and it was about -30 for about 30 days. I don't know. It was one of the roughest winters because my boys went to Montana State
Yeah.
and they didn't have weather like that at all. Now, Jackson, Wyoming is a lot colder than Bozeman, Montana, even though it's further south. It gets very, very cold there. West Yellowstone, Jackson, those are two places. Like if you watch the Weather Channel a lot, those will be the coldest place in the country. More, I mean, often, right? Like it happens a lot that those two places are just cold. And then Bozeman's in like a banana belt, they call it, where it's a little bit warmer up there for whatever reason. But
Hmm.
anyway, I wasn't prepared for 30 below zero for 30 days at all and didn't like it. And we tucked our tails and went. I went as far south as I could go. My wife stopped in Nashville, where she's from, and I went on down to Key West, and that's how I got started down there, guiding down there. And that was a interesting learning experience. I would go down to Key West in the wintertime, then I'd go back out west to the Rockies in the summer, and I did that for a little while until it was about time to get married. And when I asked my wife to marry me, she said, "Yes, I'll do it, but we got to pick one of these places. Like it can be Jackson, that's fine. It can be Key West, that's fine. You know, let's just pick one. I can't move back and forth like this. It's not a lot to ask." So in Wyoming, I worked for someone. I didn't make a lot of money, and the season was really short. In Key West, there's 365 potential days of fishing. I own my own business, and even though I wasn't getting many trips, I was making a lot more money there and had an opportunity to make a lot more money there. And I liked the fishing a little bit better, so we went to Key West and built my guide career down there. That turned into doing some tournaments, which took me away from my family way too much, and I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And the the next kind of idea was, well, if we're not going to do tournaments, maybe I could do a TV show that would keep me at home with my family. And so we built this TV show called Saltwater Experience. It's been on the air for 21 years now. We just finished our 21st season last week, and along the way, we built a couple of other shows: Into the Blue, Life on the Water, Sweetwater. Even had a show about fitness there, Fitness Truth. Filmed it in my garage. Um, but we've built that over time without really any idea of what we're doing. Just kind of putting the pieces together and just taking the next logical step. Like once you do one show, well, you probably do two, and once you do two, then you could probably do three. Um, we've encountered, uh, well, I would say, television ratings aren't what they once were. And we used to be on ESPN on Saturdays and OLN, which then turned into Versus, which then turned into NBC Sports on Sunday.
Hmm.
So we would do about 350,000 people watch the show on Saturday, and about 250,000 would watch it on Sunday. Well, there are almost no TV shows of any kind that get that kind of rating today, um, just because there's just so many more channels, and there's YouTube, and there's Instagram, and there's podcasts to watch. There's so many different things to watch that it's very, very difficult for anyone to get those kind of numbers. So we saw the decline in cable TV, and we noticed, well, if everybody's cutting their cable, where are they going? Like, obviously, some people are going to YouTube, but 7 years ago, YouTube wasn't even what it is today. But we were kind of pointed in the direction of, well, streaming TV seems like that's the place where everybody's going. So we built a streaming TV channel, a streaming TV network called Waypoint TV, and we didn't have any idea what we were doing. We just built it, made a lot of mistakes, um, and kept building it. And sure enough, man, we got that thing up and running, and now there's about 100 producers on there with their TV shows. We have a podcast network over there with a lot of podcasts and big social media footprint, and that's done very well. Waypoint has been a really good addition to what we're doing on its own, and you know, combining our own TV shows with it. But that's been fun. So that pretty much brings us up to date to today, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't know if if I covered it all, but I think I did.
Yes. No, that was really helpful. I'm curious, when you were moving back and forth between Wyoming and Key West, how are you? I mean, were you renting, or how are you pulling that
Yeah.
off? Finding a place
Yeah,
to live?
renting the worst place you could imagine. Like, you know, whatever the cheapest place is, whatever you can kind of um, get on that kind of salary. And a lot of times in Wyoming, we would have 10 people in one house. You got 10 fishing guides all living in one house. And it was, you know, it was fun. I never want to do it again, but you know, there's some good times, you know, and some of the people that were in those houses, I'm still in touch with, you know, and it's a good time. But then in Key West, I came on a good situation where I rented a room from my friend Simon Becker, and he, you know, he got to the point to where he was kind of like, I don't really just want any roommate, but you know, when you come, you can rent this room, and you know, then when I left, he didn't really rent it out, so it was open for me, and that was a great situation.
Hmm. Yeah, it seems like you've always been intentional about where you spend your time. And this is one of the things that when I was prepping for this, I wrote that I wanted to ask you, and it's how have you? I mean, you've obviously, it seems like, done that on purpose to be able to spend time with your family. But can you walk me through your thought process around that, and how that maybe there's been ups and downs along the way there?
Well, it certainly has changed because at first the entire focus was where to catch the best fish and where you could do that in a place where there's also tourism. And so I came upon two real magic little spots, and I really believe that there may be others like them, but I don't know, man. Jackson, Wyoming is certainly a tourist mecca. And then within 200 miles of Jackson, you have what I think is the finest fishing in the West. And
Hmm.
so there are other places um, that have great fishing, amazing fishing, but they don't necessarily have the tourism to keep you busy all the time, right? So it's a real magic formula of finding a place where the fishing is good enough, but the tourism is also good enough to keep you busy every single day. That same formula is replicated in Key West, and I think Key West even more so than Isla Morada or Key Largo or something like that. I mean, those guys definitely get plenty of trips up there, but Key West is like a real destination, and
Hmm.
uh, and then the fishing is amazing. So you got to be in a place where the fishing is good, but you have a steady flow of tourists, and that, you know, I didn't mean necessarily to do that. It just kind of happened. Like Jackson is just where I went to the guide school, and it was just south of Yellowstone, right? Key West was just where I knew somebody. But looking back on it now, I'm like, man, even if I had planned it, I couldn't have planned it better than those two places.
Hmm. You've, I mean, you just keep on pushing, I feel like, to the next big opportunity. How do you find that drive to keep going? I feel like you've continued to succeed. I mean, is there ever a point where you're like, I'm thinking I'm pretty good where I'm at? Or talk to me about your mindset around success.
Well, um, in the early part of my career, I actually had a fear of success, and I think a lot of people have a fear of success.
Mhm.
And some people will think it's a fear of failure, but when you really boil it down, a lot of times it's a fear of success. And what was happening to me is, um, you know, it happened in Key West first, to where I would enter a tournament and you get third place in a tournament, and everybody's like, "Hey man, good job. You did great. You did awesome." And then you win one, and the good jobs are there, certainly for the first one. But then
Yeah.
when you win again, it's like, "Oh, Mr. Big Shot here." Like, and then you win a third time, and you notice that some people didn't even say anything to you, and some of those people were people that you considered your friends. And so you really start second guessing, like, man, do I really want to do this? Like, I don't want to lose my friends. But I had to understand that those people weren't your friends anyway. And if and I plan on winning a lot more tournaments than 3, and I can't let that hold me back from doing what I know I need to do. And it was, but I mean, it's easy to say that now, but I can remember that this was a real hard time. It was a real hard thing for me to come to grips with this. It was basically a fear of success. Like, I don't know if I want to win that. If I win that, I might, all my friends, I might not have any friends. Right. But
Hmm.
then at the same time, I'm building a family. I'm looking at my family and I'm like, well, what do I need to do for my family? And then you start to realize, well, my priority is my family. And if those friends are going to, talk behind my back and do things that they weren't my friends anyway, right? And then your real friends, they'll stick with you, and they'll be proud, they'll be happy for you. And that's what I've learned over the years, is like the real friends are the ones that you can celebrate success with. Um, a lot of people think a friend is somebody that is there for you in a time of need, but there are a lot of people that are there for you in a time of need. There are very few people that are there for you when you know win something big, or get a big contract, or you get a new big job, or you make $1 million all at once. Like, those friends are different, that are like, man, you did that, way to go, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And luckily I've been able to collect those kind of friends in my life, and I'm rich with those kind of people now. But
Hmm.
that was definitely something that was difficult to overcome. As a young person, you're starting to have some success, and a lot of people succumb to that, and they're just kind of like, well, I'm good, right here. I think it was just a timing thing, where I probably would have been just good with that if it was just me by myself. But got my wife, we're having babies. I'm not good like that, because
Yeah.
every time I won one of those tournaments, I would get 20 or 30 guide days, new, fresh, that I didn't have. Like, we didn't have internet back then. We didn't have social media. That was how you made your name, was to do well in tournaments and to win some. And when that happened, people would read about it in the newspaper or magazine or something, and they would call you. I mean, it was that simple. Your phone would ring when that happened. Um, but I don't know that. I mean, I guess I am always looking for kind of the next challenge, but the challenges seem to. It's like walking like in a river on dry rocks. Like, you're just looking for the next one and jumping to that next one, and it's logical. And I think it was like, I don't know, maybe Steve Jobs. He was like, when you look back on your career, you can see it makes all the sense in the world looking backwards, how you went from point Z to point A, right? It's perfect, makes perfect sense. But when you're going forward from point A to point Z, it doesn't always make perfect sense. And sometimes you're just going, well, this seems to be the next logical step to create a TV network or something, or to start a podcast, or to do this or that, because of all the information that you have in front of you. That seems to be the right move. And sometimes it is, but when it's successful and you look back on it 10 years later, you're like, yeah, it was perfect. Yeah, obviously I went from here to here to here. But it doesn't look like that when you're going through it. Sometimes it's just like the next logical step with what you know in front of you.
Did it get easier to find people? I mean, you obviously there's a lot of friends that you lose, and there's people that are cut from your circle. Did it get easier to find people, like you said, that were really genuinely happy for you when you were succeeding, or does it get more
Yeah.
difficult?
Um, well, I think that's on a case by case basis. For me, I'm looking for that type of person that I want in my life.
Mhm.
And when I don't see that, we can still be friends, but you're not going to be the closest of friends. Um, and also I think finding friends that aren't necessarily your competitors, like in the fishing world, it's a really small world. And if all you do is hang out with other fishing guides and other fishermen, you're definitely going to see that. And you could say that for anything. Like, I don't know, say you're a software developer and all you do is hang out with other software developers and you get the big job and they don't. Well, there's going to be some of that. But if
Yeah.
you have friends from all walks of life, you're not competing with them. And when you win a tournament or get the big job, they don't feel as though you're taken away from their job. Right.
Mhm.
So I think finding friends outside of your competitive world, like your industry, your vocation, I think is very important.
Mhm. It does seem like too you're kind of always trying to evolve and look for new ways to find success. When you got to that point where you wanted to start your podcast, I'm curious, was that something that you saw ahead of time? Because you've been doing it now. I mean, you've got 1,000 episodes. When did you start?
I think about 7 years ago.
Yeah. Did you see? I mean, that was probably as good of a time as there probably was to get into podcasting. What did
It
you
was
see?
good, but I saw it before that, honestly, about 2 or 3 years before it, and drug my feet and um, didn't get started. And that's
Hmm.
a major regret. If I had started 3 years earlier, I mean, you just don't know where you would be. But I got all hung up on like, what's the right microphone and what's the right setup and what's this and what's that. And finally, do you know who Lewis Howes is?
Hmm.
He's got a podcast. It's a great podcast. You'd love it. It's called The School of Greatness. I really like him. He's a very good podcaster. He was like a football player, and then he tried to go pro, but he didn't quite make it. And then he played arena football. And anyway, he just decided that he wasn't going to play football, and he just became a podcaster. And he did it about 11 or 12 years ago. Probably he started, maybe 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Anyway, long enough to where I remember he had this episode, and it was like, look, this is all I used for my podcast, and it was like a a, a Rode kind of all in one recorder. I don't know. I have one in there. That's what I started with, and then these headsets that have a mic on them, and just
Yeah.
two of those headsets and this recorder. And I was like, that's it. That it's so simple. And I just bit the bullet right there and bought it. And then the podcast started, and I started doing a whole bunch of them.
Hmm.
But I got all hung up on those details, and I think that's what happens to everybody on lots of different things. But it really does happen to a lot of people that they want to get started and they want it to be perfect, and it's just not going to be perfect. It's more important just to get started. And I wish I had gotten started earlier. But I saw podcasting as a new form of media that had great potential to be able to be a companion to the television show, to where people, we had this TV show on for 15 years or so about then. And I thought, well, you know, I think I have a lot more to say than I can say on a 22-minute and 30-second show where half of it's ads. And really there's like 6 minutes of fishing, and we, don't really say much. It's about the fishing. And so I would have a lot of people emailing me and asking questions. I'm like, look, all these questions, these would be a good podcast. I could just talk about these questions. And then I just started having other people on that I liked and I was interested in. And it's been a real crazy learning experience, because a podcast, regardless of how many people listen to it, a podcast is a great example of or it's just a tool that you can use for your own personal growth to basically reach out to anybody you want to, and you'd be surprised who will accept the invitation. And you can sit down with somebody for 2 hours that you would have never been able to sit down with before. And if you don't have that podcast or you don't have that tool, you're never going to sit down with them. And then for me, I have a tool. It's called a TV show. But man, it's so hard to coordinate schedules, because I'm not just like, if I want to have you on the TV show, I don't have to just call you up and say, hey, what about this day right here? I really need 2 days from you. So you're going to have to come in the day before, be available for 2 days, and then leave the day after. So that's 4 days. And then I have to coordinate my schedule and your schedule with a whole crew of people. And then we have to get hotel rooms and food and everything. That's hard to do. A podcast is simple, man. We can do it over the internet. We can make it happen. We could do this today and have it out in an hour. It's amazing. And that's what I've really, really liked about the podcast is a tool that selfishly, I've learned so much by talking to these people that I've wanted to talk to. And then, a lot of people tell me that they like it. And so that's great. And I feel like I'm helping some people with some decisions in their life, like quitting their job or quitting their job in order to fulfill this passion dream job that they want, maybe of being a YouTuber or being a fishing guide or opening a fly shop or I don't know, just doing all of these different things, whatever you're passionate about. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I feel like I've drawn that audience in, probably because I talk about it quite a bit. I'm interested in that moment when people decide they're going to do something different. It's a big decision.
No, it's a lot. And I remember when I was prepping for this episode, I wrote out this line that I heard from you. You said, one way to accomplish your goals is to help other people reach theirs, which I think is really neat. And I was going to ask you today if you could talk through a couple examples of that, just kind of in line with what you were just saying, seeing someone maybe take that leap, or someone that you helped and mentored into your field today. I think it'd be a pretty powerful example here.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of those examples, and it seems like once it happens a couple of times, then you want it to happen even more. I try to help everybody I just try to help everybody, competitors and non-competitors. A lot of young people ask things that I remember I asked some of the older, more established either fishing guides or television people, and some of those people weren't very nice and they didn't say much. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm never going to be that. I'm not going to be that. I don't feel like that is helpful to me. If I'm the one being asked for advice, I don't think it's helpful for me to not give it or not help that person, because now I've just created this animosity with somebody that could have been an ally. And so I try to help, because there were some people that didn't want to help me, and that's fine. And I just remember how that felt. And I was just like, okay, that's cool. I'm going to get there anyway, but it could have gone a little different. The latest thing that is top of mind, because I just got an email from this guy this morning, was when I went to Yellowstone, and this kid asked me, hey, can you help me to do the same thing that you did? And so I told him exactly how to do it. I said, you got to, here's the job application, do this. And he went to Yellowstone. He had a great time. And then I haven't heard from him in 30 years. And he writes me back and he's like, hey man, I don't know if you remember this, but you helped me get a job in Yellowstone, and I wrote this book about it, and it's out now, and it's called Yellowstoned, and it's by he's writing in a pen name, August something. But I thought that was pretty cool. Uh, that's the latest one that I can think of. But I mean, there's just, everybody from the crew. You bring on a camera guy that is just getting started but super hungry, and one of our guys, Nick, he started out and he was like running the GoPros and stuff, and then we get him around the right people. He keeps learning. Then he's running the slow-mo cam, and then he's running the A cam, and then he is helping with the rough cut, and now he is shooting, directing, and editing Saltwater Experience and Into the Blue.
Wow.
And he just worked his way up and learned a little bit each time, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to bring you on, and I want you to stay right next to this other guy, which one of our main producers has retired now. One of the most talented people I've ever been around in my life, musically, with the camera, with the editing, everything. This guy's amazing. So, I have to go talk to him and say, hey, look, I want Nick to hang out with you and spend time with you. And he don't want to because he does his own thing. But it's like, look, we need him to learn. I want him to learn. So you create that opportunity for him, which Nick could have flopped and not done well, but he didn't. He did great. So you provide them the opportunities, and they continue to grow. And it's great when they stick with you. Some of those people don't stick with you; they move on their own, and that's cool. That's cool when that happens.
Yeah, you talk about sometimes you do flop, you fail. In my experience, that's been some of my best learning experiences when I put myself out there and it doesn't work. I'd be curious to hear, you've done a lot without experience and you found a way to get where you wanted to be ultimately. Is there any examples or moments that were pretty tough where maybe you thought, I don't know if I can do this, that come top of mind here, that you'd be interested in sharing?
The one, you know, the one thing I think about when you ask that, the first thing that came to mind was that my wife and I had gotten married. We moved down to Ramrod Key. It was 45 minutes away from Key West. It wasn't. It was the house I could afford at the time. I didn't have a lot of trips, and she's working in Key West, so she's doing a 45-minute drive in the morning, a 45-minute drive in the afternoon. Not ideal. And I am trying to get trips. I'm inexperienced, and anybody can get 100 days. When the tourists are in town, it's easy to get 100 days, but 100 days isn't going to last you through the year. So you really need to get to like 200 to 250 days to do well. And then if you really want to get after it, you need 300 days plus. And that's where I ended up. But there was a time when I was hovering around that 100 to 115 days, and that's, you know, March, April, May, that's 90. And then you get some days in June. So maybe you get a few days in March. You're fishing most days in April, most days in May, most days in June. And then you're getting these scattered trips throughout the year. That's basically a schedule that's very, very easy to do. But man, that money goes so fast. So I'm talking to my wife, and we're looking at our finances, and it is tight, man, with what she's bringing in. We don't have any kids yet. And we come to the conclusion that I need to get a second job. And I'm like, I came down here to be a fishing guide, and now I'm going to be a bartender at night. And I was like, you know what? I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. Went fishing on my own, out there by myself, just thinking about it and thinking about it. And I decided, with her, I'm not going to get the second job. I'm going to do the opposite of that, and I'm going to spend all my extra days, any day that I'm not booked, I'm going to be out there fishing. And it's very counterintuitive when you don't have any money and it costs money to go out. and you're not bringing any in. But I was like, look, I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be at the boat ramp. I'm going to see the other guides. They're going to see that I'm working. And I think, the more I learn, I'm not getting trips because I don't know enough. And so I'm going to go and do that, the opposite of what I felt like I should do. And it was really, really tough, man. It was really tough. And there were certainly times where we thought, I don't know that we're gonna make this. Um, but at that point, I just kind of got to the point of like, well, if we don't make it, I'd rather go out like this than get this second job. And I sometimes think if I had gotten that second job, where would I be today? And I think I would be a part-time fishing guide with a second job. I really do.
Yeah.
And or have just thrown in the towel and not have anything. And so it was like a burn the boats moment of like not doing it. I'm going to go the other direction. And luckily my wife had enough confidence in me to say, okay, well, if that's what you think you should do, then let's do it. And so she gets maybe a few extra hours at the fly shop where she was working in. But then, eventually, not long after that, the trips started coming in. And then, I just treated each customer like they were gold, and a lot of them came back. And that's how I built it. But that's what I would say would be was the most difficult time. I mean, there's plenty of other times where you're away from your family trying to do these redfish tournaments, which redfish tournaments are like bass tournaments, except that there's a limit on these things. So a single angler can keep 5 bass. And when you have 5 bass in the live well, the weight of those bass combined makes for a competitive thing. I mean, you could have 35 pounds and another guy could have 36 pounds. But with the redfish, you can only keep one for a person. So, and it has to be within a slot limit. So 18 to 27 inches. And so the red fishing is interesting for tournaments, except for that part. You couldn't be in possession of more than one. So they made it a team thing. So now you can have 2. Each angler can have 1. So you have 2, you bring 2 live redfish to the scales, and there would be a half a pound difference between the winner and 8th place, right? Like it's very tight, very tight. And you are also having to target these fish 18 to 27 inches. And then it's a new sport, so there's not a lot of money in it, not like bass. Like the professional bass fishermen, they can actually make a living doing it. There are a lot of tournaments. There's pretty good payout, and you're not splitting it with anyone. With the redfish tournament, there were a few tournaments. There was not a good payout, and you're having to split that with someone. But this all made sense to me because I knew that just being a fishing guide and paying for things full price was not going to work. I needed a free boat, and I needed a free motor, and I needed like some of these major expenses needed to come either at a severe discount or free. And so I didn't know how that happened. I did not know how sponsorship worked at all. And I felt like if we go on this redfish tournament, we're going to learn how it works. And that's what we did. And slowly but surely we started to figure it out.
How does that world work? I mean, what does the first sponsorship look like? What do they ask of you in exchange?
Well, the first one's the most difficult one to get by far, a paying sponsorship. Everybody at the beginning, people want to trade out, gear, and it's fine if it's a boat, but it's not fine if it's a fishing rod or something. They want to give you a fishing rod in exchange for some of these other things. But basically, sponsorship works. The only reason anyone sponsors anyone is that it's going to improve their bottom line, right? You're going to help them sell more stuff. And a lot of people do not have that right. They think that if they win a tournament or they have a good reputation, then they deserve to be sponsored. And that couldn't be the furthest from the truth. That's the furthest thing from the truth. There are people out there that will never win a tournament, that will maybe won't even enter a tournament, and they're great at selling stuff. And that company would rather sponsor that person than the guy with the greatest reputation. Then you get a guy like a Kevin Van Dam who has both. He's a great salesman, he's a great ambassador for the products, and he wins. Now that guy's going to make a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
but he understands what he's there to do. He
Yep.
has to win, and then because he's winning, people want to do what he's doing, right? So the first sponsorship, it all happens because you have some sort of pull, some sort of an influence. You're an influencer. A long time ago, that was not a term, but you have some sort of influence. In my situation, I wasn't even fishing the redfish tournaments yet. I was in the fly fishing world, and I was just fishing with a lot of heavy hitters, a lot of people that were really good. And my first sponsorship was with Rio Fly Lines, and Jim Vincent wanted to pay a little bit each month so that I would give feedback on these new products that he had, and I would help him get this line into the fly shop in Key West and then get people to buy it. And then we started to create these interesting tapers that were very specific, that had never been done before, like a permit fishing taper or a tarpon fishing taper, or like just different types of fly lines that hadn't been done before. And I would cast them and cast them and cast them and fish with them. And I'd send him these long written reports. And basically that's what it was. I guess there is another reason why somebody would sponsor somebody, is if you could bring some knowledge to the table that would allow someone to create these products that had never been created before. But, eventually it's because you sell it, right? And so that was the first one. Scott Fly Rods was the second sponsorship. And then after that, things started to happen. But the first thing that started to happen was, and probably some of the best advice anybody's ever given me that I have used throughout my career, was the first television show that I was ever on was this professional bass fisherman. His name was Shaw Grigsby. And Shaw Grigsby, I was asking him about sponsorship and how it works. And what he told me, he said, listen, you are worth the size of your audience, period. And I was like, that's interesting. So what does that mean for me? I mean, I'm so green, I don't even know what that means at that point. He's like, all right, well, look, you're out here fishing. How many people do you normally have in your boat? I'm like, one. He goes, how many days do you normally fish? And I'm like, 300 right now, fishing about 275 or 300. And he goes, okay, well, then you have, if you're fishing with somebody different, then your audience is 275 people. And he's like, what could you do to improve or increase that audience? I was like, well, I'm on the radio. I give a fishing report on the radio. He goes, there's something how many ever people listen to that radio show? That's more audience. And do you ever talk to any magazine writers or anything like that? And that's what we used to do, is take a magazine writer fishing and they'd write an article. And so I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, so you're seeing it. You're building your audience. Now you have to keep track of that. And so I was like, oh, okay. So every time I was on the radio, I'd write it down. And every time I would have a magazine, I would get that magazine, cut out the article and put it in this little picture, like a scrapbook kind of thing. And eventually I used to go to like a sports show, and I would have this giant binder. I mean, it's so nice now. You can just go with your iPhone, but you would have this giant binder of like every time your name was mentioned in the newspaper. I mean, I went overboard on it because Shaw was like, every single one of those things makes a difference.
Yeah.
And if you go in there and you show them this, and somebody else comes in and they show them one article, who do you think they're going with? So I was like, okay. So I started doing that. And then over time it got refined, but I did see that the more I did, the more you could make on sponsorship. You are literally worth the size of your audience. And so when it came to the tournaments, that was a big audience booster, because here we are, we're riding down the road in these wrap trucks with wrap boats, and we're traveling thousands and thousands of miles. People see that. there used to be this thing called Joyce Julius, and they used to add up all the impressions that you were making.
Hmm.
And that was one of them. You're on the road this many miles, and how many people are seeing it. And so I just kept doing that. And then the tournaments, when you would win a tournament, you would get a lot of press. And if you entered the final day of the tournament, you were like on ESPN fishing, and that was good. But when we decided I didn't want to do those anymore, we went to all the sponsors and said, hey, we're thinking about doing a TV show instead of these tournaments. And all we're asking you to do is just pay the same that you're paying now, but we'll apply it to this TV show instead of doing the tournaments. And every one of them said, yes, absolutely. And, we had a good enough relationship with them at the time where I was like, so why are you so open to this change? And they, some of them realized where we were and kind of, we needed a little education. And they were like, well, look, when you're entering the tournaments, you might win, and we have confidence in you. And we know you're going to win sooner or later, but we don't know when. And we're just kind of betting on you, and you're making some impressions along the way, but we're waiting on the big hit. On TV, we know that you're going to be on TV on Saturday, and we know what the projected ratings for that show are going to be. We can give you the product to film with that we want you to film with. He's like, this is just a no-brainer. This is what we want. It's a guarantee. It's
Hmm.
it's a more sure thing. Okay, so now we get the TV show going. You're taking magazine writers all the time. Today's world, it's social media, and every time that you start to increase that audience, your worth goes up. However, it can also go down if you're not a good ambassador. So the real kind of magic balance there is to constantly be increasing your audience, but also do it in a way that you are the ambassador that the companies want to attach themselves to. Because if you get in trouble, if you do stupid things, if you say stupid things, companies don't want to attach to you, no matter what your audience is, So that's kind of, I don't know, did I break it down enough?
Yes, you are the size of your audience. I got you beat me to my question too, because when I heard that, I'm thinking the same exact thing that you probably were when you first heard it. So that's helpful. Was there ever a time when you got offered a sponsorship where you maybe didn't agree or you actually didn't use the product?
Oh yeah. There's lots of those crazy
Yeah.
things have been offered. Um, and just you just say no if it's ethically or morally against what you want. That's an easy no. The
Hmm.
harder no's are the ones where it's like a product that you just wouldn't use it.
Yeah.
Like, if I wouldn't buy it and I wouldn't use it. And of course, when things are really really tough, and you're at a place where it's like, I mean, I got to do this or we're not going to have a show. That's a tough one. But luckily, I've only had to make that decision maybe once.
Hmm.
There's other decisions. The toughest ones are when you get with a company that you really like. You really like the people there. You really like the product, and it is a very authentic sales pitch. Um, for one, Oakley sunglasses. I was Oakley's first fisherman. And you would think Oakley sunglasses would have the biggest sponsorship of anybody, but that's not the way it goes. The largest companies with the biggest budgets pay the least, usually. And I've had Oakley and Under Armour and Bass Pro and Yeti, and Yeti's different because they started small and grew big. But Under Armour and Oakley, those are two worldwide international brands that you would think would be the biggest sponsorships of all, but they're not. They're smaller. But with Oakley,
Hmm.
they were bought by Luxottica, and when that happened, they basically cut all their fishing. And I loved Oakley glasses. I loved them. I mean, I thought they were fantastic. I went out there to the factory. They showed me how they're made. They're bulletproof. I mean, and I'm in a sport where I'm very good chance you're going to get hit in the face with a lure or something, or a split shot or something. And I don't want to lose my eye. If I lose my eye, I'm done. And so they're like every pair of those glasses, like a certified ANSI rating um, safety glass, right? And so I was just all bought in. And then it goes away, and you got to find something else, and you got to find another company. It's like, okay, well, these, I don't feel as strongly about these as the others, but we need a sunglass sponsor,
Yeah.
you know? And, and I don't know. Those are tough situations where you really want to stay with a company and then you can't because something's changed at that company. They were bought or something happened.
Mm-hmm. And as your audience was growing, there's a lot of people that then have access to you, and maybe even they know about your family. I mean, are there negatives as your audience gets that large, that someone would want to
Um,
think about, or is it not something that
yeah,
experience?
I've never really encountered that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my family laughs because the little inside joke is that I get recognized at Bass Pro Shops and Cracker Barrel. Um, so
Yeah.
we, we, you know, if if I'm in a fishing place and I'm wearing fishing kind of stuff that I wear on the show,
Mm-hmm.
I'll get recognized. But if I'm just
Yeah.
out, I mean, I don't get recognized. I mean, maybe on occasion, but it's never been anything that's been like you don't want to go there. But when you're going to go sign autographs at Bass Pro Shops, and they've put you on the poster, and yeah, those people are coming. That's the right crowd. It also
Yeah.
seems to be the right crowd at Cracker Barrel for whatever reason. But you know, I've never had a problem with that.
Mm.
I'm happy to when somebody recognizes you and has seen the show or listens to the podcast or something like that. That's the ultimate compliment. So I usually spend as much time as I can with them, and it really doesn't happen that much.
Mm-hmm. I think, uh, backtracking a little bit to the media side of things, you're heavily involved in this industry. You're probably looking forward to try to see around those corners where you're probably wondering what's happening next. Where do you see this industry heading? I mean, is it more social media? Are there new platforms that'll come about? I mean, I'm going to let you take the stage. I'm curious what you're seeing.
What I'm seeing is that it it used to be very, very. I mean, looking back, it was very, very easy to do what I'm doing now. We would film 12 shows. We would put them on one network, and once they were done, we were done. That was it. There was no social media. There was
Mhm.
nothing like that. The networks would air it, and that was it. And that's why it was a good thing that we could do the TV show and we were still guiding, because I don't know what I would have done the rest of the year. That's not enough. But then as social media comes around, YouTube, all these other platforms, um, that's not enough anymore. And you can't ever leave your audience. You have to be in touch with them all the time. So that's why I like the podcast. I like social media, and you have to stay in front of people every single day, all the time, and you have to do it in a way that is an extension of what we're doing on TV. So the quality has to be very high, and the information has to be very good. And honestly, it's hard to come up with that every single day, sometimes, but we can and do. But um, I think that more volume is probably going to be the next thing that happens in this industry. Is that if you're gonna, it's not enough to have a show that has 12 episodes. It's not enough to have a YouTube channel that has a show every week. it's not enough to be putting out Instagram reels every single day. Like, people's appetite is just so strong right now, and it's so hard to get anybody's attention that um, I think that paying attention to what is on the cutting edge is incredibly important. We got on Instagram very, very early. That has benefited us greatly. We got on Facebook very, very early, and that benefited us. We got on YouTube very early, but then had a kind of a, a love-hate relationship with it because YouTube did not protect the categories like the television networks would. So, like, for example, if we have Mercury engines, the television network can't run a Yamaha ad on our television show. Well, when we got on YouTube, we didn't understand how it worked, and none of the sponsors understood how it worked. And we would put our show up there, and people would be running competitive ads right on the show, and we'd get hundreds of thousands of views. And it was really easy to do that in the first couple of years of having this stuff up there. But it was all, in some people's eyes, it was all advertising someone else's product, and they were paying. And so those were the early days of YouTube. And so we were like, okay, cool. We'll just take that down, or we'll turn the ads off. Well, when you turn the ads off on YouTube, that messes up the algorithm. They don't like that. So they don't show your stuff to anybody. So we've had this up and down relationship with YouTube. I don't know I think YouTube, if I were going to bet on a platform, I would bet on YouTube probably as the eventual winner this year. There has been this kind of a balance, seesaw balance of more streaming views, less YouTube views. And then finally, this last year, I think it was almost even, that YouTube was getting as many views as streaming TV and conventional TV and everything else. And then this year it flipped and YouTube got more. Now, I'm not talking about YouTube TV. I'm talking about the YouTube app, like YouTube, and they're getting more views on TVs. Like, so you have your YouTube app on your TV. For a while, people only watch YouTube on the computer or on the phone. Now it has finally turned to where more people are watching YouTube on their big TVs with their remote control than they're watching streaming TV. And that's a really big indicator. YouTube has a lot of money. It's Google. But I still feel like all that has to happen is a slight change in technology, and everything that we're doing is changing. I can see it happening. I was hunting quail not too long ago, and one of the guys that I was hunting with brought some of the Meta glasses, and I was like, "That's cool, man. I want to see those. I haven't seen a pair in person." He goes, "Let me show you some videos." And he shows me these videos. They're every bit as good as a GoPro. It's got a tiny little camera on the side of it. This is as big as a pinhead. And I was like, "That's incredible, man." I mean, it was really, really good footage that he had. And then I put the glasses on, and they have little speakers in them. They're just like the over-the-ear speakers. You can hear the music, but nobody around you can hear it. In these videos that he showed me, the audio was television quality audio coming from some little microphone in the glasses. And so I'm looking at these videos, I'm watching, I'm seeing the glasses, and it's just very clear. This is where we're going, because finally the glasses don't look so stupid like the big headsets that they were trying to get everybody to wear. Those just weren't ever going to make it. But these now, you have, it's not. I mean, I see what's happening. I told you that Luxottica bought Oakley. Luxottica is the biggest sunglass company in the world. They have Oakley, Ray-Ban. Basically, go in a sunglass hut. Every glass that's in there is owned by Luxottica. They don't put competitors' glasses in there. It's almost a monopoly on sunglasses. So the first ones that roll out are Ray-Ban, Meta. The second ones are Oakley that roll out. They're Meta. And Oakley has had technology in their sunglasses for a long time. I had these sunglasses that had this little drop down drop down speaker that you put in your ear, and you would wear the sunglasses and you could talk on your phone. That was revolutionary at the time. And I used to be out there guiding, and I could talk on the phone while I'm guiding, hands free. It was amazing. And you could listen to music, you could do whatever. But it's so clear that with these cameras, the microphones, and some of them now are having these heads up displays where they'll have like a little display in the glasses, and so you can Google things by hands free by using your hands like this. I don't know if you saw Zuckerberg doing his video like that, but that's all coming. That's all coming so quickly that by next Christmas, dude, everybody's going to have a pair of those glasses. And then those are going to go away so fast because that's going to turn into a contact lens. And then that contact lens is going to have everything. And then that becomes almost not a wearable. It becomes almost like part of you. And then it won't be long after that to where people will be getting chips put in their head. And I'm telling you, it's happening so fast, and it is going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So I don't know what that does for how people watch TV, but I feel like TVs aren't even going to, a computer screen is not even going to be a thing. Like that's going to be a thing where you're going to tell your kids, yeah, we used to hang these big things on our wall and we'd have to watch it. They're like, that's so stupid. Why would you do that? Just like when I tell my kids, yeah, we used to have a phone and it was in one place on the wall and it had a long curly Q cord and we used to talk on the phone with it. That's the only way you could get a phone call. My kids are like, what? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, well, that's the way we did it. I feel like that's going to happen with TV. And so that's why I am as forward thinking as I am, because I feel like just if that next technology changes, if you're right there with it, you take advantage of it. And I look back on the things that we've done that have kept us relevant in this world, and it was getting on Facebook right away. It was getting on Instagram right away. It was developing a streaming network before anyone, before even Samsung had a streaming network. We had our network, and then we were one of the first channels on Samsung. It's still our strongest platform. And all of that happened because we were right there, right when it happened. And so get on Instagram today and try to accumulate 300,000 followers. Whew. It's unbelievably hard. It's unbelievably hard. But if you got on when Instagram was first starting and everybody's getting on the platform looking for people to follow, we were getting 10, 15, 20,000 followers a day. I mean, and that same thing happened on TikTok, which we did not take advantage of. I thought TikTok, that's just a bunch of dancing. I didn't realize the power of TikTok, and I let that go by. Now, that'll be the last time that happens, because when a new platform comes around, that's when you have to attack, even if it fails, even if it's like a Threads where it's like not that great.
Mm-hmm.
If it happens and it launches, you got to be on it immediately. And then if you're on it for a year and nothing's happening, okay, well, that wasn't the one. But there, whatever new platforms, that's what I think. I think that that all the content is relevant. I think that you can have different editing styles. There's all kinds of AI editing styles now that are really pretty amazing. That I like. Some of it I don't like at all, but I see some people doing it to where you use it as storytelling. And if you can do that really, really well, and you're one of the first people to do it, you're going to benefit greatly.
Mm-hmm. I do think that the authenticity side of it is going to be hard to replicate, but with your industry and fishing and tying AI into it, is there any, I mean, this is probably applicable anywhere. I mean, do you worry at all about that AI generated content? I mean, someone could make a video of them catching a great white shark and someone from Kansas watches it and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And they wouldn't even know otherwise. Like,
Yeah.
how are you thinking about that?
Well, we're not there yet
Mm-hmm.
to where you can't tell, but it's so close right now. And it's one thing just to have a video.
Yeah.
It's another thing to have a video. I mean, like, I don't know, what is somebody going to do with that? Are they going to tell people that they're a great, that they're a great guide for great white sharks, and then they're going to go there and the guy isn't going to know what he's doing? Like, I
Yeah.
think there'll be some of that, but I think, um, for our purposes, I want to use the footage that we have. I mean, like, there's some days where, it's overcast and the whole show looks kind of gray. I mean, can you change the sky out on something like that? Like that would be kind of cool. Um, could you could you brighten it up and I don't know. I don't, for our purposes, I don't want to manufacture anything that didn't happen, but
Yeah.
there are so many. What I see now are some of these really, really cool transitions that the AI editors are able to make, that where they get you from one scene to another in a way that was never happening before. And we do some of this stuff. Like, we'll have this B-roll, like you'll take the underwater camera and you'll like, um, I don't know, like wherever there's a lot of bubbles or something, and you can like put it underwater and there's just a ton of bubbles, and then you can start with those bubbles and then bring it back up, and so you can make this transition to where it looks like it went down and came back up and you're in a different scene.
Hmm.
That's a technique that's been going on for a long time, but now you don't have to do all that with these cameras and try to keep track of all those different shots. I mean, AI can do that for you and you won't be able to tell the difference at all. But it probably will make some people's fish bigger, and it probably will, um, people probably will be able to manufacture things. I think
Yeah.
that the platforms themselves have already shown signs of trying to, um, kind of not necessarily ban AI, but at least make the viewer aware that this is AI footage. Um,
Yeah. I know YouTube's working on that.
but like, I don't know. I mean, one thing that's interesting too is that you can create your own avatar of you actually wherever you want to be. So for like a product um, tip or whatever, we have to spend days doing these product tips where we're actually out there, and sometimes you can do it one take, sometimes it takes 8 takes, and it's still not very good. And sometimes you're given like a bunch of technical stuff that you're supposed to remember and say without reading it, and that's always been difficult for for us. I could see how you could write that in your avatar, do that and deliver it, and it would come out, it would be perfect. It would be perfect, and it would look like I was doing it. um so I don't know if that's something that we're interested in, but I am certainly interested in AI as far as improving quality, making things cooler to watch, and improving our speed and volume greatly. Um, and that is happening now. And I like AI. I really do. I'm pretty involved in it as far as like running the business and coming up with plans and proposals and time management and different things like that. It's really incredible what it can do.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's also where we're going, is that, kids used to like, if you have an editor that comes to you, he's like, well, I can do Photoshop and I can do all these other things. And, I've got this certification and that certification. I think very soon here, it's going to be like, how good are you with AI? I don't really care about any of these other things. How good are you with AI? And show me what you can do. And one person is now going to be, if you have one editor that's really good like that, they can do the work of 15 people.
Gosh, the amount of time people are getting back.
Yeah,
I do.
but I don't think anybody's getting back any time though. Like,
Uh,
see, for me, I think that's just more volume.
mhm,
Like, we're going to be working the same amount of time. We're just going to be producing 10 times as much. I
mhm.
don't I don't think of it as like, oh, cool, we can only work 2 hours a day. Like, I've never thought of it like that. I'm like, oh my God, now, do you know how much we can do? We could have 8 shows.
Yeah.
and we're going to need 5 of these AI editors. Like, I've never thought about it like that, but I do hear that people are getting time back. But I don't know about you, but since I've had a cell phone, I've not worked less. I've worked more.
Hmm. I
Every
don't think,
every every generation of the iPhone, I work more.
yeah,
Like,
I don't think everyone's wired like you though. That's the thing.
well,
I mean,
yeah,
there's
maybe.
people out there that will get that time back, and as they become more productive with less time, they're probably going to have more time to consume. And to your point, I think that's just going to be more of an opportunity for people like you who step up and produce that output.
Yeah, but I think, like, let's just say that your job is creating proposals, or I don't know, something where you're taking a lot of data and you're putting it into a format to where the board can read it or something like that. And
Hmm.
generally it's taking you 3 days to put one of these reports together. Now you can do it in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, it's going to be very soon that the board is going to realize that it only takes 15 minutes, and they're going to be perfectly fine with doing it AI. But either you're going to have additional responsibilities, or they're going to find somebody that can do it in 15 minutes, and they're going to do it for all the different companies that they have, that board has. And that person's going to be doing the work of 80 people.
Hmm.
And especially when it becomes agentic AI. Do you know about that, where you create these agents? So an agent would be like, a very simple example would be, it actually does something for you. So you create this report, and then the agent will then take the next 3 steps. It'll email it to your people. It will document it in a spreadsheet that it's been done. It will set off this chain reaction to where it's more like Jarvis in Iron Man than it is, just like doing a little bit of work for you. Right now, that's the next evolution of this, to where you have this agentic stuff, to where somebody might come to a job interview and they say, well, how many agents do you have and what can they do?
Hmm.
And somebody's going to come with an army of these agents ready to deploy on whatever your job is, right? And somebody else is going to be like, oh, I'm learning how to do that. Okay, well, which one of those 2 people are you going to hire, right?
First
So,
one.
yeah. Well, I mean, I have 2 sons. One's 27, one's 25, and my daughter's 21. So we're having these conversations a lot, about, like, look, in certain industries, the better you are at AI, the more hireable you are. And if you don't have that, you don't stand a chance. I mean, it's like, what, I don't know, go back 30 years and it's like, are you good on the internet? And somebody's like, well, I don't know. I'm going to get a computer here one of these days. And then there's this other guy that's like, yeah, I built 80 websites this week. And, oh, okay. Then you're going to hire that person, right? Even though that person is like not a website builder, but they enhance your company, because they could build a website if you wanted one,
Hmm.
but maybe their job's something different. I just feel like that's where we're going. Like, I talk to the kids about it a lot. And so one of my kids, I kind of feel like there's 2 paths right now for a young person. One is going down a road and knowing a lot about AI and being able to use it in whatever field that you decide that you're going to go into,
Hmm.
to the best of your ability, and keep it human, right? But then the other side is do things that AI is not capable of doing right now, and that is manual labor. And to an extent, but my son is now getting involved in got a job with a masonry company. So he's going to be a brick mason, and it's going to be a long time before AI is going to build a hospital.
Hmm.
But it's not out of the realm of possibility. 10
Yeah.
robots out there moving bricks, it could happen, real
Mhm.
fast, with tolerances of laser thin tolerances, right? Like, it's happening. But either way, to go, down the road of that manual labor kind of, and there's some great opportunities, welders, masons, um, carpenters, um, finished carpenters, all of that, man, just seems like it's so needed because so much of the youth is going the other way.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I love to hear it. I mean, in my industry, maintenance technicians are hard to find.
Right.
There's not as
Exactly
many,
like that.
and that's music to my ears from a hiring standpoint.
Yeah.
I do want to transition over and talk about fitness a little bit before we wrap up here, because that was something that I was really interested in. I know we talked a little bit prior to our call today about it. And I think maybe the best way to kick it off would be just kind of hearing about your routine and how you got into fitness over the past couple of years and why.
Well, my fitness journey has certainly not been a couple of years. I started, I don't know, when I was a kid, I played a lot of different sports. I wasn't ever very big, but
Hmm.
I played a lot of sports. And that lasted until about eighth grade, ninth grade. And then I started to focus on the one sport that I had the most potential, which was wrestling. And wrestling has been such an important thing in my life, for all the different lessons and everything that we've been talking about. Basically, everything we talked about, I learned on the wrestling mat
Hmm.
and with the wrestling coaches that I had. And that goes into like even my style of training and fitness now is not very different than the way we trained in wrestling. Um, I it's funny because I when you're a wrestler, I always thought I was going to go to wrestle in college. And this weekend, before this weekend, well, maybe before this year, I would tell people my story about deciding I wasn't going to wrestle in college, and that included a little school called James Madison. That's where I was going to go to wrestle in college, and I didn't have a lot of offers, but I did have one there, and now everybody knows James Madison because they just made it to the NCAA playoffs. Um, but before, nobody really knew that school. I didn't really know that school. It wasn't all that attractive to me. And I decided, you know what? I don't think I want to wrestle. Well, I was getting ready to go wrestle, and my dad was like, I see you're kind of struggling with this situation here about wrestling in college, and you don't have to wrestle in college. I was like, I don't? Seriously? I thought that was the whole plan. I thought that's what I was going. He's like, no, you don't have to. I was like, great. I'm not going to. I mean, I remember that moment. I was like, well, I'm not going to. And so
Yeah.
then I went to Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, all the SEC schools, and started to tour these different kinds of schools and not looking at the wrestling program at all. I mean, I had been wrestling since kindergarten. I was in need of a break. And so at first, I was just really happy that I wasn't wrestling. And, I would come back at Christmas and I'd wrestle with the high school. And it's still an important part of my life. But I got pretty out of shape because I didn't do that anymore. I didn't wrestle. I didn't cut weight. I didn't, didn't do anything. So I gained some weight and got out of shape, and I was happy about it. I was like, man, I'm not sore. I don't have a black eye. I don't have any stitches. Everything's great. My ears are fine. Nothing hurts. Like, this is amazing. I had never done that since kindergarten, right? Because when you're wrestling year round, you get beat up all the
Yeah.
time. And so I was like, this is great. And so get out of college, and I'm just getting fatter and fatter. And I was like, man, I got to do something here. And I started running, and it was painful. I remember it was so painful, and I was just trying to run 30 minutes at a time, and I couldn't even do it. I was running like 10 minutes, having to walk, and I would get to where I would run 10 minutes. And then my wife got pregnant with our first baby, and I decided when that baby comes out, I'm going to be in shape, and I'm going to be a good role model physically because that's something that I can 100% control myself. There's a lot of things you can't control, but I believe in controlling the controllables. And if there's something that you can control, like being in shape, I'm going to do it. So that I had, just like she had 9 months to prepare for this, I had 9 months to prepare. And I started running, and I started running more and more and more. And I started running, I started training for marathons, and I got to where I felt like I was going to break a 3-hour marathon. And all I was doing was running. I wasn't doing any push-ups. I wasn't doing any pull-ups. All I was doing was running. And all the coaches back then said runners don't lift weights, and it was just all carbo loading. And I just went right with whatever they said, and it was working. I dropped all the weight. I almost made it back to my high school wrestling weight at 138 pounds. I was little, and I was running great. I ended up running a 3:13 marathon. But
Wow.
when my son came out, I felt like, okay, I'm in great shape, and that lasted for a number of years. And I used to go on these 20-mile runs with him in the jogging stroller. Then when his brother came around, I had a double jogging stroller, and I'd spend all kinds of time with the kids doing these long runs and stuff. And my back started hurting, and I just kind of got tired of it after a while. And that's when I found well, first I found this guy, Ross Enamite, rossboxing.com, rosstraining.com.
Mhm.
And he was basically doing CrossFit. He was doing boxing workouts and different things, and I liked him. But on these message boards, people would be talking about, like, this is kind of like a CrossFit workout. I'm like, what's CrossFit? And so I found that. I'm in Key West. I have no one to work out with. None of my friends work out. I literally have like no equipment whatsoever, nothing. And so with Ross and his workouts, I could do, it was like a lot of burpees and push-ups and pull-ups and running and sprinting and different things like that. Very little um, equipment. And I noticed I needed some dumbbells. And I was going by this dock one time, and this guy was just throwing these dumbbells in the ocean. I was like, hey, man, what are you doing with those? He's like, I'm just throwing them in the ocean. I've been tripping over them for years. And I guess his son left or something. I was like, I'll take those. And he's like, well, you can have these right here, and you can swim down here and get these other ones. I've thrown 10 or 15 of them in the ocean. So I went and I collected all those dumbbells. And so I only had, maybe it was about 6 or 8 dumbbells. But I found CrossFit. And at that point, CrossFit was very, very underground, and it was all online based, and it was all in the comments. So they put a workout up there, and then people would start putting their times in. And it was so long ago that there weren't even videos. Like, you didn't even see videos on there. You would just be like, somebody did this workout in 8 minutes and 45 seconds. And then I would do that same workout. And the thing I liked about it was that it had, all you needed was a pull-up bar and a dumbbell and a jump rope or something like that. And you would do these movements, and you would do them in a certain way, and you would do it for time. And I was like, oh, mine was like 14 minutes. Like, what in the world's going on? So as the internet kept getting a little bit better, started getting the videos, and then I could see, oh, they're doing it different than I am. And then I would learn these movements and different things. And so I could compete on a worldwide basis in my backyard with very little equipment, just on the computer. And so all of a sudden, when getting away from wrestling and not having any competition in my life, getting into the running and realizing, oh, wow, I missed this. This is what I need. Like these big races, that was so awesome. It was so fun. I felt full again. I was like, this is amazing. And fishing tournaments were like that, but they weren't giving me everything that I needed. Like, it starts with a boat race, and then you got to catch fish, and there's a boat race back to the dock, and that's pretty exciting. But it wasn't like this. The first marathon I ran, I was like, oh, I missed this. This is amazing. And somehow in my backyard by myself and competing against these people online, I was somehow getting that same kind of feeling. And that's when I was like, I like this. And I kept doing Ross's stuff, and I kept doing CrossFit. I had never stepped foot in a real CrossFit gym. I had never met anyone else in person that even knew what CrossFit was. And I was just going on this website and doing that. So we moved up to Tennessee, and I was like, well, when we get there and build and buy a house up there, I'm gonna make sure I have a big garage, and I'm gonna make my garage like this world-class strength and conditioning facility, and I'm gonna bring a group here every morning. And that's exactly what happened. Um, I got to Tennessee, and that's where we live now. Um, and I built this garage, and I had one guy come, and then another guy would come. And today, I mean, this morning there were I think 17 people in my driveway. A lot of times we'll have 25, 26, 30 sometimes. But there's always like 6 or 8, and that's 5 a.m. workouts, and we get after it in the mornings. And so I really like that. That group has been going for about 17 years. Um, and we don't miss any days, Monday through Friday, never miss. Even when I'm out of town, it still goes. They go when I'm out of town and not, but it's basically CrossFit. Um, I like to say it's like the origin CrossFit, like old style CrossFit mixed with, there's something else called SEAL Fit, which is like a Navy SEAL version of kind of their take on CrossFit, early CrossFit. And then there's Go Ruck. And over years, I've done a number of these events like SEAL Fit Kokoro and then Go Ruck Selection, which are two really tough ones. And we'll just train up for those kind of things and then do those. But there are a lot of rucking, a lot of carrying heavy stuff over long distances. But anyway, that's kind of my history of working out. But these days, I think in your questions you were asking, like if I could only do one style, I would say it'd be CrossFit. But like what people don't realize about CrossFit, or maybe don't know about CrossFit, is like in the early days of CrossFit, it was like constantly varied functional movements. That's pretty much it. And of those movements, it was running, rowing, skiing, bike, swimming, Olympic lifting, gymnastics, and a host of other movements. And so when I combine all of those things into a program that also includes mobility and stretching, I feel like I don't know how it could get a lot better than that for me. Like, because I've already been down the road of monostructural, like running, like a ton of running.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't really serve me well. I became a pretty fast runner. But today, when you look at like Nick Bear and those hybrid athlete guys, I mean, they're able to do everything that I was able to do and more. And then they can also do all this other stuff over here. That's more what I'm into today.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to do both.
Where does your heart rate typically sit when you're doing a CrossFit exercise? Is it higher, like zone 4, zone 5, or is it lower than that?
It can be. I mean, it can be to the point of like max out, depending on what you're doing. I mean, so there's all kinds, it's constantly varied. If you look at the definition of it, it's constantly varied. So, I mean, we might do a 60-minute zone 2 bike some
Mm-hmm.
days, but then another day might be, 4 sets of Tabata intervals on the bike. And another day might be a workout that literally you're going as fast as you possibly can and you're finished in 3 minutes. And
Yeah.
you are wiped out at the end of 3 minutes, because the only reason you went 3 minutes is because last time you did it, you went 3:12 and you just cut 12 seconds off of your time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's, you varied. I try to keep it varied in like the modality that you're using, like the different lifts and the different exercises and the different tools, like the bike, the row, the ski, but also the time. Like, is it a short sprint? Is it a mid-range one? Is it a real long one? And as we were getting ready for like those Go Ruck selections and stuff like that, that's going to be basically nonstop movement for 48 hours. So like we'll train a little differently. It won't be so many short sprints, So of course, you'll have some of those in there, but it'll be more like these longer, like slogs of like an hour long,
Yeah,
you know,
spending all day in there. Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
But I like to keep it varied, and in the course of a week, like right now, what I'm doing is like we'll have 2 partner workouts a week. We'll have one long individual one, which could be called a hero workout. They have this whole list of hero workouts, and then like one day that's like several short sprints, to where you get your heart rate jacked really, really high, and
Mhm.
then stop and let it recover, and then try another one.
So that's really good for like your VO2 max then, right? From a
Mm-hmm.
longevity standpoint.
Yep.
Okay. How
Yep.
are you doing dieting, recovery? Is there anything specific that you tie into these that works well?
Well, this time of the year, um, it's not as good as it can be in other times of the year, but I use this Carbon app, and right now, if I'm eating just right, I'll eat 171 grams of protein, 170 grams of carbs, and 62 grams of fat, keeping that in 1,922 calories, which is a deficit, and I will lose weight when I'm doing that.
Mhm.
Um, but honestly, this time of the year is challenging, and that's why we usually start a weight loss challenge January 1st
You enjoy
with my
Christmas?
group. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody, it'll come off. Just I
Mhm.
try to be consistent throughout the year, and I try to eat that much protein, and keep the carbs a little lower, but I need them. I need carbs,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the fat too.
Do you do any kind of intermittent fasting to hit that
I
calorie?
have been trying. Well, I don't like eating late. Like
Mhm.
if I don't eat by 6 o'clock, I just don't eat dinner. I'll just not eat. Um,
Mess with your
but
sleep?
I like to eat at 5, which drives my wife crazy. She would love to eat later, but I'm just like, look, it makes me sleep terrible. It messes up my sleep if I eat too late, and so I'll just either not eat or eat just something really light if then. But I'm a good eater. I can eat a lot of food. And
Yeah.
so I just don't like to do it late. But I have been messing around with just fasting in general, like 48, 60-hour fasts, and certainly 24-hour fasts, which are really easy to
Mhm.
do, especially if it's on a day when you're not training. Like you eat a big dinner the night before, you don't eat breakfast, you don't eat lunch. And by dinner, that's a 24-hour fast.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times I'm going like a 36. There'll just be a whole day that I just won't eat, and then wake up and eat breakfast. Um, dinner, don't eat breakfast, lunch or dinner, and then eat breakfast.
Mhm.
That's like 30 something hours, but makes me feel pretty good. Honestly, I feel like the inflammation goes down throughout your body. When I do my stretching routine, if I do one of those fasts like that, I can hit deeper in every single movement, every single one. It's wild. And
Yeah.
then you start eating again, and you're like, huh, I'm not quite as flexible as I was,
Mhm.
But I like messing around with that, and just trying different things. I mean, I'm not dead set on any one
Yeah.
thing necessarily. I try some different things, and if I feel like it's helping, I keep doing it. If I feel like it's not, then I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like I'm constantly changing my approach. Like I was doing the calorie tracking for about probably half a year and just recently decided to take a break on it because I think
Hmm.
I have a little bit of obsessive um, trait to myself where like if I want to do something, I'm going to do it at the highest level possible.
Right.
And I think it was kind of to a detriment, and I stopped doing it. And I think that I've actually been able to eat in a deficit uh, more easily. And I know what everything is now. It's just kind of in my head more than anything,
Yeah.
but it helps.
Yeah.
Uh, I do want to try to wrap up here so I don't take up too much of your day.
Okay.
Uh, one more question I have actually, and then we'll jump into the rapid fire round and get you out of here. I appreciate it. Um, and this is from something that I heard on an older episode of your show. just yesterday, I was listening to you interview Josh Jorgensen from Black Tip Age. And you had a pretty neat quote. You said, "I think that the path to happiness is being happy on the way to what you're doing." I believe in that completely, and I try to live by it, but I still will catch myself kind of slipping into the I want to look at the next thing, or why am I doing this? What's ahead? It's really difficult for someone maybe that's at my age, and I'm wanting to ask you, how do you actually stay present and live by that? Probably having more experience with it.
Well, I think that when you have accomplished a couple of things, whatever it is that require a lot of training. Let's just take a marathon, right? Marathon is a really good example. I
Hmm.
find a lot of examples about business or life come from the gym or from training, but a marathon's a really good example of what you're asking about. So the first marathon I ever ran, I started this whole program, Hal Higdon program, went through the whole thing, and then I run the marathon, I finish, and you get this kind of feeling like, wow, huh, thought it'd be different than this, right? Like I didn't think I was going to be on the podium or anything, but the marathon's over. It was great, but man, a lot of work went into that. And I look back on it now and I'm like, I loved every second of that. I loved it all. I loved the process of getting there, and I loved running the race, but the race wasn't the deal. It was this whole decision to do it, finding the right program, sticking with that program, all the ups and downs in training, and then the race is just a celebration at the end, right?
Hmm.
And so I've run a number of marathons. I've done those Seal Fit, Kokoro, and all these different things that I've had a tremendous amount of training for. And I think as you start to kind of get these successes in small things and in bigger things, you start to realize that the actual success of winning the tournament or finishing the race or doing this, that wasn't the best part. The best part was the was the lead up and the process. And I think that when you start a new business or you set out to build something, if you have a lot of those that you can draw from, like Goggins calls the cookie jar, you just start to realize, well, the final destination isn't necessarily the final destination. Like the whole thing is like enjoy the process all the way through, because that's really the good stuff.
Hmm.
And so I think the more of those that you have, the easier it is to stay present.
Hmm. Well said. I'm going to jump into the rapid fire round now and get you out of here. I won't ask
Okay.
follow up questions here because I could keep going all day. First one: who are your top three content creators, authors, or podcast hosts that you follow today that help shape your perspective?
I think Joe Rogan on his podcast is definitely someone that I like. Um, Top three, huh? Um, Maybe Jocko Willink.
Hmm.
Um, I like Cameron Haynes too. You mentioned Cameron Haynes early, so we'll go with those three.
Good pick. If you could share a meal with three people, living or not, who would they be and why?
I think everybody, I mean, I would choose Jesus and I would choose my dad, and then I would save the third seat for one of those, either one of those people to bring a person that they think I would get the most from.
Dang, can I steal that?
Yeah,
That's good.
you can.
Yeah. What is a piece of relationship advice that you wish you could give to your younger self?
Mm. Well, I've been lucky in the relationship world, and I have picked the the biggest, best decision I ever made was picking my wife.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that probably not try to fix everything and just try to listen. That's what
Hmm.
she wants you to do anyway.
Yeah. And if you had an entire day with no responsibilities, how would you spend it?
Well, I love to. I do actually like to fish by myself. I love to fish with my kids, so that'd be one way. And in some days, depending on how the training load, I might spend it on all different forms of recovery.
Hmm.
um, but I mean, probably fishing with my kids would be great.
Yeah. Is there a product, tool, or piece of gear that you've purchased that has significantly improved your life?
Um, I like the Joe Hippensteel stretching program, um, Ultimate Human, what is it? Performance, UHP. Um, that program has been really, really good for me. I'm I have far less injuries than I did before. On a fishing side, it would be the power pole trolling motor combination on a bay boat.
Hmm. I know I said I wouldn't ask a follow up, but can you explain that? What is that?
The trolling motor setup.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a bay boat is a boat that's like a skiff is a boat where it's really small and you push it along with a push pole. That's traditionally the way that you would fish for bonefish, permit, or tarpon.
Hmm.
And then we started to use these larger boats up to 24, 26 feet long, fairly shallow draft, not quite as shallow draft as a skiff, but um, the technology of having a trolling motor on the front and then a power pole on the back. The power pole allows you to stop with a remote control. You just push this little button and this spikes goes down and sticks into the sand, and allows you to stop. So you have total control of the boat. And that really opened up a whole new world when I started using that, because now you have a boat that has a much larger engine on it, much larger fuel tank, has big bait wells in it. So I can carry 150 gallons of bait, which means like pilchers, throw the cast net and catch all these different types of baits. And then you can take those to areas that when I first started fishing a bay boat, you're taking bait like that to a place that's nobody's ever fished like that there. And it was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome to take that in there and see the fish react to that type of fishing. Um, so before that, you would just have a bigger boat like that, and you'd have to drop an anchor, and then there was no trolling motor, so you'd use the big motor, and you just couldn't fish it. You can fish a bay boat like a skiff now.
Hmm. Last question, and this is one that I wrap up every episode with. It's what is the single piece of wisdom that has had the greatest impact on you that you hope the listeners here can take away from your episode?
Mm, well, probably what we talked about here. You are you are worth the size of your audience, and so if you're in that realm of influencer or you know sponsored athlete, sponsored professional, you are worth the size of your audience. You can take that to the bank, and I have. So that's what I would say for this conversation, I think.
Thank you, Tom. Where can my listeners find you?
TomRowlandPodcast.com, saltwaterexperience.com, and waypointtv.com.
Fantastic. Tom, thank you for your time
You
this week.
bet. All right. Thank you.